So usually at the beginning, one recites a few prayers. So I think we'll do the shortest way. We just recite the refuge and bodhicitta prayer, right? And since quite a few old students here, so we'll do in Tibetan, right? So we don't need any text, right? So I think for those which don't know the meaning, so it says, I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. By the merit I created through listening to the Dharma, may I become a Buddha in order to benefit all sentient beings. So that's the meaning of the prayer. One chant. O Sangye Chödam Sogi Chonam La Janchu Badu Dagni Kyab Suchi Dagi Jin Sogi Pesonam Ki Jola Pencha Sangye Rubashu Sangye Chödam Sogi Chonam La Janchu Badu Dagni Kyab Suchi Dagi Chenyen Ki Pesonam Ki Dola Pencha Sangye Dubashu Sangye Chodam Sogi Chonam La Janchu Badu Dagni Kyab Suji Dagi Jinsogi Pesonam Ki Dola Pencha Sangye Dubashu.
Oh, can we offer the short mandala?
Okay, if you like.
And we can do in Tibetan. Om Sahaji Bhagi Jogshin Metu Dram Re Rab Lingji Nidye Kyen Padi Sangye Jingdu Mete Uwayi Rogyunam Dakshin La Chubarshu Jetsun Lama Dampakinam Kijukuikala Kense Jutindri Jita Sampe Duchetin Mala Samkeshu Kishapa Vaktuso Idam Guru Ratna Mandala Kam Naryatayami.
So can you hear me well enough? Yeah? Okay. So I often like to start with Buddha's own life experience. So he was born in northern India and in a very wealthy family, and his father was a chief of a clan, and he was a ruler of a country. It wasn't a kingdom; it was more some kind of tribe, and he wanted very much his son Siddhartha, which was to become Buddha, to take over his ruling capacity. So he was given the best teachers in every field of knowledge and archery and sport and so forth. And I think in those days you marry quite young, 17, 16. And so he got married to a princess from another tribe around, also Sudana. And they had a child called Rahula. And and he was groomed to take over the job of his father. And before his birth, an astrologer said that he might become either a great ruler or he might become a spiritual seeker, right? So his father wasn't at all interested in him becoming a spiritual seeker. They wanted him to become this ruler, right? So they arranged his life to be very nice, with only sense pleasure and beauty and nothing unpleasant to be seen, so that he doesn't follow his path of seeking a spiritual journey. But however, I think late teenager, young adult, he starts, thinking, is there more to life than that? So he went out of the palace a few times, and then he saw that actually there is old age, sickness, death, and quite a lot of problem in life, right? Suffering. So that he realized that everybody has to go through that. So he was, I think, like many of us as teenager or young adult, you come to realize that you have to get out under the wings of your mom and dad, and you have to make your own life, right? So you start thinking, and looking around and trying to find a purpose for your life. So his question was, you see, can you end sickness, old age, and death? Is there a solution to be found, right? Or is it just what it is and there's no solution? So, and he saw some ascetic, in those days there were quite a lot of ascetics in India. Actually, still nowadays, if you travel to India, you see sadhus, naked guys with long hair, or just a little longi, traveling around, right? You see these wandering beings, and they survive on begging, from village to village and things like that. So it's still current nowadays, but it was also current at the time of Buddha. So he saw one of those ascetics, or maybe a few of them, and they looked very peaceful. Even though they renounced all the sense pleasure, but actually they looked very peaceful. So he was inspired to follow that path, right? So one tradition says that he spoke with his wife, and the wife said, "Okay, you can go." And another tradition says he sneaked out at night. So I don't know which version, is more accurate. Anyway, so I think his child Rahula was maybe 1 or 2 years old when he left, and he couldn't speak to his dad because he wouldn't agree. So he sneaked out at night, and he took the appearance of one of these Sramanera, so these ascetics. So he gave up all his possession to his servant, and then he walked off and lived with the ascetics. And in those days, there were 2 famous teachers in his area where he lived. So he studied with those ascetics. So in those days, the idea was, you see, sense pleasure is actually what bounds you, which creates craving. You see, you have pleasure, and then you want again, and you want more, right? So, and that's what binds you to this earthly dimension. So in those days, those ascetics were very much into meditation. You see, you see, because the sense pleasure, the problem that what they realize is that not only you have never enough, you want to repeat, but they're impermanent. You know, they're not reliable. So what they were looking for, this ascetic, is a happiness that's permanent, a happiness that is everlasting, that is beyond uh, growing old and dying, and the unsatisfaction of everyday life, and how it's uncertain, right? How things at any moment can be taken away from you. So in those days, the idea was to go into meditation and to get away from the sense perception of the sense and go into the mind, right? And you go deeper and deeper into the mind, and so you make abstraction of your sense, what you see, hear, sense, smell, taste, touch, and you just focus on your mind. And the more you focus on the mind, more your appearance of the body disappear, and this world disappear for you, and you just mind. Right? You become infinite space, infinite mind, and you remain in this blissful state. So just imagine that you have no body. So if you have no body, you're not hungry, you're not thirsty, you don't get tired. So you just stay in this peaceful space of awareness of mind. So he learned that with his two teachers. So one led him to the lower level of the formless absorption, and the other one led him to the peak of cyclic existence, or the higher level of concentration. So he trained under that, so, and he could stay hours and days in this state of blissful awareness, where your complete body disappear, right? But when he came out of that experience, the body was back there with his pain and with being hungry and thirsty and needing sleep and so forth. So he realized, well, this is just a temporary holiday, It's like going on a cruise, on a ship, but then you have to go back home and you have to go back to work, right? So it's a little bit like that. So he realized spiritually that's what's happening to him. He was going on holiday, but when he came out, the problems remained, right? So he expressed that to his teacher, and they said, look, that's the level I've reached. And both of these teachers were quite old, right? So, and he was the best of their student. So he was offered, the teacher, the guru was saying, look, you can take over the ashram, and, you can take over the student, and you can guide them. And both times he said, no, I'm not interested, because this is, I'm not happy with what we've gained so far, It doesn't solve really the problem, right? It's just going on holiday, And actually, if you die with that experience, you're born in this formless realm. For millions of years, you become infinite space, infinite consciousness, and you're completely blissed out without any body. But it lasts until that energy that brought that experience ends, and then you're born again somewhere else. So the Buddha wasn't satisfied, so he left both of his teacher, and then a few of his peers, they were impressed by his qualities of concentration and his, he was very gifted. So a few, 4 or 5 of his friends, they followed him, and they went near the Narayana river, near Bodh Gaya, and they lived there in the forest. and they lead a very ascetic life because they thought, you see, sense pleasure is binding you, so we renounce everything. So they used to eat just a few grains of rice a day, so completely ascetic, just drinking water and uh, eating the minimum, just the bare minimum to keep your body alive so that you don't die. So they did that for about 6 years, and but his body became weaker and weaker. A few times he almost fainted. So he thought, well, that was kind of an extreme. And then a girl came by and offered him milk rice, kind of like that. So he had that, and he had got a lot of energy out of that, and he felt, oh wow, you know. So but his friends said, oh, he has given up the ascetic life. He's indulging again in sense pleasure, So they gave him up, So they moved away, and the Buddha was left alone, right? And he continued to meditate, and under the Bodhi tree in Bodh Gaya, so he got his revelation, his insight, and his experience. And he got that experience. I will never ever suffer again, Not in this life, not in a million life, not in a billion life. I have transcended suffering forever, right? So that was his experience. It's like, I will be happy forever, It's finished. For me, suffering is finished, So he stayed in that absorption a few days. So in some traditions, say that's where he taught the Lotus Sutra, right? So in the Chinese tradition or Asian tradition, they say that's when he taught the Lotus Sutra. And in our tradition, say for 6-7 weeks, he didn't teach, because he thought nobody could understand what he has realized. And then the gods appeared to him and told him, you should nevertheless try to say something to someone, Don't stay, There are some students that can understand what you have to say. So then with his clairvoyance, he tried to say, who could understand what I have reached? And he thought of his two first teachers, that they could understand. But both had died, had passed away while he was in retreat, so they weren't able. Then he thought about his companions that were doing the ascetic life with him, that had given him up, right? So he thought of them. So and he saw that they were in Sarnath, in the deer park, meditating there. So he traveled, he went to meet them. And when he reached there, first they ignore him. Oh, he has abandoned those ascetic life. Let's ignore him, we're not paying any attention. But when he arrived, his aura and his presence was so peaceful, and, his qualities were shining. So they listened to him. And so in the first talk he gave, they all reached the state of arhat, right? So just because their mind was so ripe by their own practice, just hearing what the Buddha had to say about the Four Noble Truths, so they reached that experience of being beyond suffering forever too. And then for about 40 years, the Buddha kept on traveling throughout North India and speaking to whoever would listen, right? So there were father, mothers, children, scholar, ascetics, so all type of people would come, right? And he would teach them according to their level of mind, the level of readiness to hear this and that. So one story that comes to mind, there was a mother that had lost her newborn baby, the newborn baby was dead, So she was grieving so much and crying the loss. She was thinking, who can revive my baby? Is there a doctor or somebody that can revive my baby? She was so sad. So she asked a few people and said, oh, maybe the Buddha can help you. Go to ask him, maybe he can revive your baby. So she came with the baby to Buddha completely, sad and crying. And the Buddha said, yes, I can actually revive your baby. But first you have to bring me uh, a bowl of rice or some grain of rice from a household where nobody ever has died. So go around, bring me rice from someone where nobody ever has died. You know. So she was very hopeful. Oh yes, he's gonna revive my baby. So let's go around look for that place where nobody has died. So he went on. He knocked the young mom knocked on the doors, everywhere, and asked, "Is that a home where, in this home, did somebody die?" And everywhere, he said, "Yeah, my grandmom died, my dad died, my child died, my brother died." So she didn't find anywhere where nobody had died. And that in that process, she realized that she wasn't the only one to have lost somebody, and her grief, kind of lessened. And then she came back to the Buddha, and then she was ready to receive his teachings, so he could able to help her. So in that sense, the Buddha helped in many, many ways, right? I remember another story. He went to visit his ex-wife. So his ex-wife was a teacher for kindergarten. How you say? Kindergarten? Yeah. Anyway, she was sitting under a tree with the children around, and so she was teaching the children. It doesn't say what she taught them. Probably the alphabet or something. So the Buddha arrived, and so Sudana, his wife, asked him to tell a story. A story to the kids. So he told her, that many lifetimes ago, there was a young man that at the time of a previous Buddha, um, he came into the village where there was a Buddha passing, and everybody was trying to make some offering to the Buddha, right? And he didn't have anything, right? And so there was a young girl there that had beautiful lotus flower, beautiful flowers. And so he asked her, "Can you give me a flower so that I can offer it to the Buddha?" And the young girl, she said, "Yes, I give you a flower if you marry me." and, and that young man said, "Okay, you know, under one condition, if the day I want to go into retreat, you don't hold me back." And she says, "Okay." And so she gave her flower, and then he threw, as the Buddha was passing by, he threw the flower, and one flower uh, ended up in the lap of the Buddha that was passing by, right? So the Buddha was telling that story to the children, and Sudana understood that that young man was the Buddha in a previous life, and she was the girl that had given the flower. So they really, she realized that. So like that, so the Buddha tells story to children and, all walks of life, during these 40 years of traveling around northern India. And then, so his teachings then were categorized into three, so basically the Buddha taught during 40 years, and there was no books and there was no pen, nobody take notes, there was no recorder, no technology like that. So in those days, it seems people had very good memories. so there was nothing written down for at least 3, 4, 500 years. It's not completely clear. Nothing was written down. Can you imagine? So in our days, if you think I memorize what my teacher said and I pass it on to the next generation, how quickly it can become completely distorted, right? I mean, with the quality of my memory, good luck. So anyway, in those days, they seem to have a very good memory and they pass it on from generation. So let's say one counts in a century, one says it's 4 generations, not 4 times 25 years, about, right? So that's make 4, 12, 12 to 16 generation before anything was written down. So that's quite a lot of time if you think about it, right? And then in those days, there were, the Buddha had spread around northern and southern India. And then the two common language in those days was Sanskrit and Pali. So some of the teachings were then written down in Pali and other in Sanskrit. Because actually the Buddha himself spoke mostly in Magadhi, which was the language of his region, which was more a colloquial kind of language. So then the Buddha's teachings were collected together, written down, and probably at the time of King Ashoka, probably king gathered the the scholars and asked them and paid them and supported, so that they write all these things down and collected. So then the teachings were put into different groups, right? So one category was to put them into the tree basket, Vinaya, basically teaching on ethic, and then the Sutra teaching on concentration or things like that, and Abhidharma teaching on wisdom, kind of like that. So that was one way of that they categorized Buddha's teaching. And another way was those of the three turning of the wheel. So first he's teaching about the Four Noble Truths, and then he's teaching on wisdom, prajna paramita type of teaching. And then this third category on Buddha's Buddha potential, Tathagata Garbha. So how everyone has Buddha nature. Everybody has the potential to become Buddha. Everybody has this pure nature inside, right? So we all have, a clear light mind, right? So if we cultivate that, we can all become Buddha because we have the potential in us, because we all have a certain degree of love and compassion. So this love and compassion can grow infinitely. And also, our mind is not always obscured, so sometimes we're upset, sometimes we're depressed, sometimes we are happy, sometimes we're jealous, sometimes we're peaceful. So our mind constantly change, but the nature of mind itself is completely pure. It's like the sky, right? So it can be temporarily obscured with clouds, but the nature of the sky is not the clouds, right? The nature of the sky is pure, transparent, and clean. So same thing with our mind. Right? Our mind goes to all his different thought and emotion, things like that. But the mind itself, by nature, is completely pure. So the thought, emotion, all these things we have in the mind are adventitious. They are not in the nature of the mind. And in the second type of teaching, in the Prajna Paramita, I said, look, there is the conventional existence, the superficial way the world appear, but deep down, if you zoom in, its ultimate nature is that nothing has any essence. Nothing, you cannot find anything having any essence there. So the world exists just superficially, it depends on cause, condition, and so forth. It's constantly changing, but it doesn't have any ultimate essence to be found. So that was the teaching on Prajna Paramita, right? The wisdom side, that things are ultimately empty of inherent existence. And then the first set of teachings that look, there's problems in life, right? And these problems, all the problems we have, they have causes, right? And these causes are not outside causes. They are psychological causes. They are our problems in life come from the way we think, the way we see reality, right? And then there's a state of mind where you can be completely happy and free from all these problems, right? And there's a way to get there. So that was his first set of teachings. So when one studies a text like the 12 links of dependent origination, so this set of teaching relates to this category of the Four Noble Truths, right? So one part is, the first is that there's problem in life, there's suffering, insatisfaction, and these have causes, right? And then there's different ways to analyze these causes. One way is to study and reflect on the 12 link of dependent origination. So it fits into that category of Buddha's teachings. And then if we look it from the point of view of the Lamrim, the graduate path to enlightenment, so there Buddha's teaching was put together by Atisha in a graduate way from a beginner. How would you spiritually progress? You see, so first you would see, how to be happy in this life. And then on that base, how to become happy next life, how to create the cause to be happy, next life or the life to come. And then how to transcend and being born under the control of karma and delusion. How do you go beyond this perpetual rebirth that you're not free from, that you push by your previous action and by your mental states? How to become free of that? Right? And that's the second set of teaching, how to become free from cyclic existence. And there, so the 12 link would fit into that category, how to become free from cyclic existence. So one method is to reflect on this 12 link of dependent origination. And then the third category of teachings there is how not only to become free yourself, but how to help all beings to become free. How you can generate that state of mind. I don't just want to be happy for me, but how can I make all beings happy? How can I make all beings, how generate that state of mind where it's my responsibility to free all universal living beings. So it's an incredible state of mind. When you think about it, you see most of the time we think about me, my friend, my family, my entourage, and then sometimes one thinks it's a bit of, oh, my country or global warming. We think about the planet and all living beings on it. But bodhicitta, or the mind of enlightenment, is actually taking responsibility for the happiness of all living beings wherever they are in the universe. whatever form of life they might have. Whoever has a mind or whoever has a soul, whoever has this capacity, this wish to be happy, may everyone become happy. And not only ordinary happiness, but may they achieve the happiness that is beyond all suffering forever. May they become Buddha. And then not only do you cultivate that thought, may they become like that, but you cultivate that, may I bring them to that experience. May I bring all beings to happiness. So that's quite um, an amazing state of mind if one can cultivate. May I bring all beings to the highest happiness. So it's not the state of mind where you think, the Buddhas will do it, the Bodhisattva will do it, the deity will do it. No, I will do it. It's this courageous state of mind. I will bring all beings to no matter how many millions and billions of life it will take, I will never give up working for sentient beings until everyone has reached enlightenment. So if out of that state of mind you aspire to enlightenment, so that is then bodhicitta, right? Now, the challenge, you see, is how to bring all these different levels into our daily life, right? So how do you train your mind? And I think the first level is how to become mindful of what's going on in our mind moment by moment. You see, to recognize in us what's going on. So there are states of mind that are happy, peaceful, and there are states of mind that are unpleasant. So to recognize those. So for example, when one is upset, you see that state of mind is quite unpleasant. And when one is obsessed with something, again, the mind is not happy. Whereas when the mind is peaceful and is loving and joyous, so these are states of mind that are pleasant. So one tries to understand how it works in us, how we can produce the happy state of mind and how we can reduce the unhappy states of mind. And there, so to have this awareness moment by moment to observe what's going on in our mind. So how do you develop that is by meditation. You see, when you meditate, what you do, you're looking inside. So you train to look what's going on in your mind. Normally with extraverted, we're involved in our sense consciousness. We're involved in thinking and doing things like that. So one doesn't have the habit of looking inside what state of mind is going on moment by moment. We are in the doing mode, right? So meditation makes you look at your mind, and you keep on looking at your mind. So you become aware of the various states of mind that arise. So I think meditation doesn't necessarily mean sitting, you know, uh, and meditating like that. I think you can go for a walk and meditating, you can sit on a bench and meditate. You can walk your dog and meditate. I think maybe for us busy people in the West, I think sitting and meditation might not be, uh, I think it's more difficult to bring it into your daily routine. Whereas, going for a walk now, you see many people running and, you know, for the sake of their health, they go for jogging, kind of like that. And I think it's probably there's a way to turning into meditation. I think having some me time, time for myself, not being with other people, I think is very important, you see, because it's only when you're alone that you can see your life in a different perspective, you know. When you're with people and talking and doing things like, you're not aware that life is passing by, right? That and then the fact that we come closer and closer to death, right? So, and then all this activity of this life will be gone. And when we die, the only thing that comes with us is our state of mind. So all our unfinished project we have left behind, all our friends, family, relative, we have to leave behind. So I think to live with the thought of death is very important, is by thinking of death that um, it sinks into you that we are born alone and we die alone, and we cannot take anything with us. No? Finally, one of the suffering of cyclic existence is the fact that we are alone. No? And many of us, we have lost very close people to us. They were there one day and then they are gone forever, right? And it will happen to us. We will gone forever and nothing we can take with us. So only our states of mind. When we speak about mental affliction, you see, so this disturbed state of mind, fear, uh, expectation, um, all the things we are attached to, the food, the drink, the sleep, the friendship, our activities, all these things that we are attached to. So all these things is what binds us. We are bound by all these things and people we are attached to. So we are not free. We psychologically, we are bound to all these things. So a person, an arhat, doesn't have any of these attachment. A Buddha, a higher Bodhisattva, doesn't have any clinging, any things that holds him, that binds him to anything. So uh, that freedom is pure happiness. You see, you're not bound by anything. So no jealousy, no pride, no envy, no fear, no expectation, nothing at all. So we might be able to get in that state of mind for a few seconds here and there, or a few minutes. But to be in that state of mind all the time without effort and in any given situation, so that's real freedom. So how do you get to that state of freedom? So that's, you see, the journey that we try to be on. How do you become free? You see, how do you become free from your compulsion, your habit, your um, your memory, your conditioning? How do you become free of all that? And then of the imprints, the karma, uh, the seeds you have planted. How do you become free of that? So that they don't ripen into unpleasant experience. How do you become free of that? So moment by moment, if you see how things exist merely labeled by the mind, you know, if you understand how things moment by moment are empty to exist from his own side, whether the eye, the body, the mind, the flower, the table, the glass. So whatever you see, whatever your consciousness focus on, if you see them as being merely labeled by the mind, so there's no attachment arising. If you see them as inherently existent, attachment will arise. So moment by moment, you can either reinforce your cyclic existence, your trapping, or you can become freer. So moment by moment, that's how, you see, each moment we either make our trapping stronger or we make our trapping weaker. So, for example, for anger, there's an antidote of love and compassion, patience. For jealousy is to think of all the things you don't know. For pride, all the things you don't know, and so forth. So you have an antidote for each of the mental affliction, but actually you have one antidote that works for all the mental affliction, for all the problems, and that antidote is to realize emptiness and dependent arising, right? So actually there's only one meditation you need to do, is emptiness, right? Moment by moment is to focus on emptiness of everything. And thereby you become freer and freer of your mental affliction. And the second meditation is love, compassion, and bodhicitta, right? So in Buddhism, if you want to really go to the essence, there's only two meditation, right? Is how things exist as mere name and how you expand your heart to to care more for other than for yourself, right? And to have the energy to do these two meditation, you need to reflect on the determination to become free. So if you want to add one more to the two, the third one would be how to generate renunciation or the determination to become free. So actually, if you want to condense it, there's only 3 meditation you have to do, but you have to do them all the time, 24/7. There's no break, right? So it's either you focus on emptiness or you focus on bodhicitta, but you never do anything else, right? So that's how you make very quick spiritual progress, right? So it's not difficult. It's just we are not professional. We are uh, hobby sportsmen, so we do it on Sunday or, a few days a week, and the rest we let go, right? But if we are professional, you do, if you want to become go to the Olympics, you have to train all the time, right? So if you want to become Buddha or higher being, you have to train all the time. There's no, right? But instead of training with your body, you have to train with your mind. Mm. So I think it is possible, I think each one of us can get high attainment in this life, right? It's just a matter of seeing it as something important, as something that you want to achieve, right? So if you want it strong enough, or if you want something strong enough, you put the energy into it and you work to get it, right? So I think in this life you can realize emptiness and you can realize bodhicitta. I don't think it's that difficult, you know, because the teaching we have are so clear and so profound, you know. So, and we all are smart, we are not stupid individuals. So, and we all have a certain level of education and we know how to read and think, right? So it's not like there's something missing in the information out there, right? And then we have a teacher like His Holiness Dalai Lama, Lama Yeshe, Lama Zopa Rinpoche, that explain it so clearly, right? So the information is there, right? And we are intelligent, right? The information there, I'm intelligent. So why shouldn't I succeed, right? So it's just a matter of doing, of following the instruction. And I think one part that is missing for us is a lack of calm abiding, a lack of a serenely still the mind. You know, as long as you don't have a certain level of calm abiding, bodhicitta doesn't really come, and emptiness doesn't really come. Even though you make the meditation completely correctly, because your mind is not stable. So even if you get the right mental image of emptiness, you cannot stay more than a few seconds. So you don't see all what it implies. It doesn't turn into a inner experience. Same thing with love, compassion, bodhicitta. You see, you can get into that state of mind for a few seconds, a few minutes, but you cannot remain there the whole day. Why? You're able to reach there through the six cause, one effect, exchange self or other, or the evolent point. You can get to the state of mind of bodhicitta. But why can't I stay there? Lack of calm abiding, lack of stable mind to be able to remain in that state of mind you have gotten to, right? So the more you have calm abiding, the more you can remain in whatever state of mind you cultivate. So in the teaching, it says You see, calm abiding by itself is kind of, we had it in many lives, you know. So one has to be careful not to spend too much time cultivating calm abiding, because then you're born in a form and formless realm, and then after a while you come back and you're like before, right? And it's true, right? If you become attached to the experience of calm abiding, the peace, the joy, the bliss, you know, it's nice. But if you get attached to it, then you create the cause to be born in these upper realms, right? Whereas if you use this calm, still mind to focus on bodhicitta or on emptiness, then you can get those realization, right? So I think it's very, very important, you know, to have a certain level of calm abiding and to spend some time to actually cultivate it, you know. And I don't think you need a lot of time. I think you can get it quite fast. You know, there's different ways. Uh, One is to do it often for 5 minutes a day. You know, throughout the day, you do 5 minutes here and there, right? So one very nice place to do calm abiding is on the toilet. There's nobody there, you're alone. Everybody is out there doing their thing, you're alone. You sit there and there you do your 5 minutes. You know, each time you go, you do your 5 minutes of calm. I do that. I enjoy very much. Yeah. Yes, in the West, the toilets are very clean. You know, in your house, the toilets are very clean. Yeah. I remember at work, you know, I used to run a flower shop in Geneva, and the only place I could be alone was in the toilet. So I used to go there to meditate. No? Because yeah, otherwise you're always busy with people around. But the toilet, you're alone. You know, it's the only place you're alone in the workplace, often, right? So I would go there. And the other place I used to love to go near my flower shop, there used to be a museum. And in that museum, there was a room that was dark with an aquarium with fish, you know, and there was a bench next to that aquarium. So I would go there in my lunch break and watch the fish, you know, in the aquarium and just meditate. You know? And the other nice things, there was a park, you know, maybe 10, 15 minutes walk away. And in Switzerland, we're very spoiled because the lunch break is 2 hours, right? So you have time to go to get your sandwich and things like that. And you go to sit by the Geneva Lake. We have this water fountain, you know, and next to that, so I would sit there for half hour, 45 minutes and meditate, you know, and then go completely refreshed, you know, to work, right? So I think the thing is that you have to see your lifestyle, what you see, and then you have to fit in there your little meditation space, right? So once you treasure this inner peace you can get, you see, just stopping, you know, and watching your mind and being peace, you know, uh, you can actually, you find places, you know, in your everyday life, you know, you can find a place to hide. For example, I, I was in Switzerland. I was you compulsory 4 months of military service, you know, when you reach 18. So I did that, but then I went to Kopan and Lama Yeshe Lama Zopa changed my mind, right? So in Switzerland, normally you have to go back every year for 3 weeks, you know, renew your your skills, you know, thing with the gun and things like that. So I didn't want to go back, right? So so then you have to go to a military tribunal, you know, to uh, uh, how you say objection consciousness, you know, yeah, you know, kind of like that. So I didn't want to go back, right? So I said to Lama Yeshe at Kopan, I bumped into Lama Yeshe and he said, "How are you?" You know how Lama Yeshe used to, "How are you?" You know, you know, with his piercing. Oops. Oh, uh, and then and I said to her, "Oh, I have to go to jail." And I said, "What?" And I explained, you know, I don't want to do harm anymore. And then he looked up, you know, how he used to do, and looked up, and he said, "Oh, no, no more than 6 months, dear." You know. So, and actually, it relieved me a lot because if you condemned to 6 months and less, you don't go to actual jail, you do civil service, right? So you spend the night in a halfway house and the day you can do some social work. So I went to work in an old folks home, right? But if your condemnation is more than 6 months, let's say 8 months, then you go to an actual jail, right? So Lama, told me that, so it kind of relieved me. And then when I was at the tribunal, so you sit in a chair, and there you have 6, 7 guy with noodles, with all the, all the medals, and they're very how to intimidating. I was 19 or 20, 20, something like that. And my lawyer, of course, they give you a lawyer, but that lawyer is a military too. He's a sergeant or some, so he's friend of those guys, right? So he's supposed to defend you, but actually he's one of them. So he's not really very motivated to help you, right? So he told them, yeah, yeah. So he seems to have an objection of conscience for spiritual reason. He's a very weak defense. So, so they discuss. So you go out and then you come back in, and they give the conclusions. So they say, yeah, it's you 8 months. You go 8 months in jail because we think you didn't have a heavy conflict of consciousness. You don't seem to have a heavy conflict of consciousness. That was the reason. Uh, and I looked at my lawyer, I thought he would raise and say something. And he just sat there. So I stand up. How can you say I didn't have a heavy conflict of consciousness? You think it's easy to go against your country, against your parents. So I was kind of fired up. And then they looked at each other. Okay, grave consequence, just 6 months. And then then I could be in a halfway house and help in the old folks home. So and then I remind me what Lama Yeshe said. Oh, you will be only 6 months. So he with his clairvoyance could see that. Yeah. So anyway, why I'm saying that is actually in that old folks home. You're busy with the old people a whole day. Bringing them food. So we were in the anime in the department where you try to make their life happier, so you bring them shopping with the car or bring them to the park, or instead of having them the ordinary food that they give you in that facility, you make them a special meal, with nice tea, put some flour and you cook a special meal, and you know so, or you bring them to a cinema or a theater or something like that with a wheelchair. You bring them around. And they also, so where to meditate with all these people all the time. So we went into the basement. There's this in Switzerland, in many house, there's this bunker against bomb, underground, under the building. So we went there, and we sat there and meditate. So in the break time, we sneak out and go there. So I think you always find somewhere to go, to meditate, kind of like that. And it's very refreshing. It's almost like how to say, you reboot your computer. You reboot. Basically, you do your day, things like that. You get scattered. You go to meditate 5, 10 minutes, and you reboot yourself. You reawaken, you wish to become free, your refuge, your bodhicitta, and yeah, you sit there, and then you go back, you're kinder and more peaceful, and you're more, there with the people you try to help. So it's very helpful to find time, for some meditation in everyday life. And I think it's more beneficial to make it 5, 6 10 times a day for 5 minutes than to do an hour in the morning and an hour at night. I think it's more beneficial to do it throughout the day because you see, you reboot yourself again and again, and then it starts to fuse, impregnate throughout your day. You see, it becomes part of who you are. So I think it's very, very good to be able to do that. So I think some calm abiding, to do often throughout the day. For those which do Shine retreat, actually they say to start with 6, 7 minutes, and you do that 20 times a day, right? And then these 6 minutes, you start make 7 minutes, then you make 8 minutes, then you make 9. You try to increase the duration of these many short sessions you do throughout the day. And then very quickly, you see the level of concentration you have within 1, 2 minutes, you can go back to it because you're so accustomed to have this short session of meditation. You can go very quickly back. It's like entering a tunnel, you know. So you see, entering into a tunnel, when you're outside, you have all the sky, things like that, and you enter, it becomes darker, 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 right? And you enter, right? And then at the other side, again, the light comes and you go out, right? So meditation becomes really like that, so you're out with the sense consciousness awake, and then you look inside, and then the mind goes inside, and you become isolated from the sense consciousnesses, right? From the sound, what you hear, what you see, and then you go into the silence of the mind, right? And then within the silence of the mind, then you bring about these insights, about impermanence, about emptiness, about love, compassion, bodhicitta, and you stay there a little bit. And because you do that 5, 6, 7, 10 times a day, it becomes really easy, you know. It's like it, how to say, when you're short-tempered, or when you see people that are short-tempered, very quickly the very little trigger is necessary for them to flare up, right? Or if you have strong addiction, attachment to something, you just see it, and very quickly that desire comes, for things. So the same thing with meditation. It's like you're so familiarized with it. So just a little thought bring about that emotion, that state of mind. Right? So you're so familiarized with it that it becomes very easy to induce this state of mind. So I think this is the key, many short session a day, many short session a day. Because you see, with calm abiding, what matters is not the quantity, is the quality, right? So if the quality of your meditation is good, 5 minutes is enough, right? You don't need to sit an hour with a distracted mind. You just need 5 minutes with a very still mind. So I think the Tibetans, like our lamas, they never put much emphasis on calm abiding, because I think they naturally have calm abiding, right? When they meditate, they have this calm mind to start with. It's almost like they're born with it, so they don't really need to work on calm abiding because they have it, right? Whereas we come from a different background where yeah, we were busy, from childhood, and very distracted with many things. So our mind is a very different place to start with. Okay, that's the insight. Now, break time.